1. Be quiet that the world fears. There is a strange silence that descends when we are alone. At first, it feels empty, like something is missing. The noise of the world fades, the distractions disappear, and suddenly, you are left face to face with yourself. Most people run from that moment. They call it loneliness. They fill it with sound, with screens, with constant company, anything but the stillness of their own mind. But what they don't realize is that this silence, this sacred solitude, is not the absence of life, but the presence of truth. It is the womb of creation. The place where all great ideas are born, where art begins to breathe, where the soul whispers its wildest visions before the world can silence them. Solitude is not punishment. It is a return, a journey back to the source of your own originality. 2. The inner landscape. Every human being has two worlds, the one they share with others, and the one that exists only within. The outer world runs on noise, expectations, duties, demands, endless conversation, but the inner world lives in whispers, intuition, reflection, imagination, and silence. Creativity lives in that second world. It cannot breathe in noise. It does not thrive in constant company. It needs space, mental, emotional, and spiritual. When you are alone, your mind begins to unfold like a landscape untouched by human hands. You start to see what you truly think, what you truly feel, what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. In solitude, the imagination finally has room to move. It stretches its arms, plays with possibilities, and begins to create connections that were invisible in the rush of daily life. The poet Rilke once said, "The only journey is the one within." And solitude is that journey. It's how the creative spirit travels from confusion to clarity. 3. The alchemy of aloneness. Solitude has an alchemical power. It takes the raw materials of thought, memory, and emotion, and refines them into something luminous. When you are alone, you are forced to listen, not to others, but to the subtle movements of your own consciousness. The mind, free from distraction, begins to dream again. Images rise from the depths, like sparks from a fire that has been hidden under ash. Every great work, a painting, a poem, a scientific theory, was first a whisper in someone's solitude. It began as a flicker of curiosity, a fragile spark that would have been extinguished had it been exposed too early to noise or doubt. To create is to protect that spark until it grows strong enough to face the world. Solitude is the artist's forge. It is where raw emotion becomes art, where confusion becomes philosophy, where silence becomes sound. And yet, the modern world treats solitude as a disease, something to be cured, filled, or escaped. We have forgotten that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness is a hunger for connection. Solitude is the space where connection with the self is restored. 4. The mind in stillness. When the mind is constantly stimulated, it loses its depth. It becomes reactive, mechanical, restless. It mirrors the chaos of the outer world instead of generating its own rhythm. But when you step into solitude, something begins to shift. The mind stops echoing noise and starts composing music of its own. Ideas that once seemed unreachable begin to take shape. You start to perceive patterns, how one thought connects to another, how beauty hides in ordinary things, how meaning can emerge from silence. Scientists call it the incubation phase of creativity, the period when you stop consciously thinking and let the subconscious mind play. Philosophers call it contemplation. Mystics call it prayer. It is all the same sacred act, stilling the outer noise so the inner voice can be heard. The most brilliant minds in history were lovers of solitude. Nietzsche wrote in mountains. Newton worked in silence after the plague drove him away from society. Da Vinci kept journals filled with thoughts he never spoke aloud. They understood something essential: creativity demands intimacy with your own mind. And that intimacy is born in silence. 5. Solitude and the unconscious. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious, the deep reservoir of images, instincts, and wisdom, reveals itself only in stillness. When you are constantly surrounded by others, your attention is scattered outward. But when you withdraw, your awareness begins to descend inward, toward the hidden layers of the psyche. Dreams become clearer. Intuitions sharper. Symbols rise from the depths, speaking a language older than words. This is where true creativity begins, not in imitation, but in revelation. When you are alone long enough, the boundaries between the conscious and the unconscious begin to soften. Ideas start to surface seemingly out of nowhere. But they are not nowhere, they are the fruit of your inner silence. Every creative act is a dialogue between what you know and what you do not yet know. And solitude is the bridge between them. 6. The courage to be alone. It takes courage to be alone. Because in solitude, you confront the parts of yourself that the noise of the world keeps hidden. You meet your insecurities, your doubts, your unmet desires. You face the question, who am I when no one is watching? Most people cannot bear that question, but those who do, those who sit in the silence long enough, begin to find a different kind of strength. They discover that solitude is not emptiness, but fullness. It's not isolation, but liberation. You begin to realize that your worth was never tied to being seen, but to being. And when you know how to be alone, you become unshakable. Because you are no longer dependent on the world to define you. From that place, creativity flows effortlessly. You no longer create to be approved, you create to be alive. 7. The world within the silence sit in silence long enough, and the world begins to whisper. The sound of rain becomes rhythm. The flicker of light becomes metaphor. The smallest detail becomes a doorway to meaning. This is what solitude gives, an awakened sensitivity to life. You start to see patterns where others see randomness. You start to hear harmony where others hear noise. And that is the seed of all creativity, the ability to perceive deeper order beneath surface chaos. To be creative is not just to make something new, it is to see what was always there, but hidden by distraction. Solitude trains the eyes to see again, the heart to feel again, the mind to imagine again. 8. Solitude as sacred practice. In ancient times, seekers withdrew from the world, into forests, deserts, or mountains, not to escape life, but to hear it more clearly. They knew what modern man has forgotten, that silence is not empty, it is filled with the voice of creation itself. To spend time alone is to enter the sacred workshop of the soul. Here, thoughts are refined into insight, emotions are sculpted into art, and raw experience becomes wisdom. You don't need to go to a monastery or a cave. Even a quiet walk at dawn, a few minutes without your phone, or an evening spent in reflection, these are modern forms of solitude. In those moments, the soul breathes again. 9. The shadow of noise. If solitude is the birthplace of creativity, then noise is its destroyer. We live in an age of constant connection, yet rarely do we connect with ourselves. Our attention has become fragmented, scattered across notifications, opinions, and endless consumption. We mistake movement for meaning. We confuse reaction with creation. But real creativity demands stillness. It needs incubation, not interruption. It grows in the quiet soil of focus. Noise kills depth. It numbs intuition. It makes us forget that silence is not the enemy of life, it is the foundation of it. The more we fill our minds with distraction, the less we can hear the subtle music of our own thoughts. And the more we run from solitude, the more we run from our potential. 10. The birth of something new. When solitude is embraced, truly embraced, something begins to stir within. It is gentle at first, a spark, a whisper, a faint pulse of life. And if you protect it, if you honor that silence, it begins to grow. An idea takes form. A melody appears. A new way of seeing the world unfolds. That is the miracle of solitude. From the nothingness of quiet, something beautiful emerges. It is creation itself, repeating the ancient rhythm of the universe, from darkness, light. From silence, sound. From stillness, life. 11. The sacred conversation. When you finally surrender to solitude, you realize it isn't silence that surrounds you, it's presence. Something begins to speak, softly but unmistakably. It is the voice beneath all voices, the one that never shouts, but always knows. That quiet inner voice is not imagination, it is intelligence, ancient, intuitive, alive. It belongs to the part of you that remembers what the conscious mind forgets. Every time you sit in solitude, you enter into a conversation with that voice. You ask not with words, but with stillness, and the answers come not as sentences, but as insight. It may come as a sudden idea, a line of poetry, a solution to something that's been troubling you for years. It may come as a feeling of peace that doesn't need to explain itself. This is the sacred conversation of creativity, the dialogue between you and the universe, between the personal and the infinite. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. 12. The artist of the soul. You don't need a brush, a pen, or a stage to be creative. To live consciously, to think deeply, to feel truthfully, to see beauty in the smallest things, that too is art. Solitude reminds you of that. It turns you into an artist of the soul, someone who shapes meaning out of experience, who sculpts wisdom out of pain, who paints each day with intention. When you return from solitude, you carry something invisible but powerful, clarity. You speak with fewer words but deeper meaning. You create not to impress, but to express. You no longer chase the world, you contribute to it. Solitude teaches you that the greatest masterpiece is not a book, or a song, or a painting, it's the self that has been transformed by silence. 13. From isolation to illumination. It is true, Solitude can feel like isolation in the beginning. The silence can be intimidating, the emptiness uncomfortable. But if you stay long enough, the emptiness reveals itself as space, the same space that allows stars to shine. Isolation is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. And when you are fully present with yourself, you realize you are never truly alone. You are surrounded by invisible forces, memories, dreams, symbols, the hum of existence itself. That realization is illumination. You begin to see that creativity was never something to find. It was always within you, waiting for your attention. 14. The return to the world. True solitude does not end in withdrawal. It leads to return. You come back to the world not as an escapee, but as a messenger. You bring with you new perspectives, ideas formed in the quiet chambers of your mind, truths refined by silence. The world may not understand where your insights come from, but it will feel their depth. Because what is created in solitude carries a different vibration, it is honest, unhurried, and alive. When you create from solitude, you offer the world something it desperately needs, a reflection of stillness in a time of noise. 15. The final reflection. Solitude is not a retreat from life, it is the foundation of it. It is the pause that gives meaning to the sentence, the breath before the song, the darkness that makes light visible. Creativity is not born in constant motion, but in still awareness. It begins when you dare to stop running and simply be. So take time to be alone, not to escape the world, but to rediscover your connection to it. Sit by the window. Walk under the night sky. Let silence wash over you until your thoughts settle like calm water. In that stillness, you will meet yourself again, not as you were told to be, but as you truly are, a living, breathing vessel of creation. And when you emerge from that solitude, you will bring something the world cannot manufacture, a vision born from silence, a truth only you could hear. Final words. Solitude is not loneliness. It is communion, with your soul, with the universe, with the source of all creation. In its embrace, you will find the birthplace of every great idea, every act of beauty, every whisper of genius. Because when the world grows quiet, the spirit begins to sing. The end.